bizarre thing to take, which is probably not even true. It's probably just misplaced. But it's funny to think that somebody saw it and wanted all the copies, and they're holding some sort of rogue service. Great. So we're in the second week of Advent. That means we have 2 weeks to go. And this time in my life reminds me of when I was a young boy. And I went to a Roman Catholic church, as many of you know. And when we lived in Little Silver, I was kindergarten-ish. And I remember in Advent each week getting closer and closer to Christmas and gifts and family parties and all the food and everything. And I was young enough to not really understand the passage of time well enough to understand that it's, it happens once a year and it's going to be over 300 days until the next one. And so I'd wake up Christmas morning, be all excited, and then the next day I would be still excited, and then a month later is when I would start wondering if it was Christmas morning. And I would rush into the living room to see, first of all, if a tree had magically appeared out of nowhere, and also if there would be presents under it. And this sort of ritual of mine, which I wouldn't tell my parents because I didn't want them to know how silly this was, because I didn't want them to know I didn't know how to tell time, first of all. I would get up and do it every single day until it was finally Advent again, and I'd be like, oh, now I have some marker of time to know when it's coming. But that expectation of the day actually made all the days between much easier, as a kid, anyways. On the other side of it, as a parent, I'm like, well, now I've got to do a lot more. I'll just wake up and all of a sudden there's all this stuff happening. You've got to set up for it. But I think it's that expectation that can bring joy into the mundane experience of every day, or the troubles of every day, or the afflictions of every day, that somehow or other, as an adult, seems lost to me, if I'm honest. I mean, once in a while, you might get that same expectation, which gives you a boost when you're maybe approaching a vacation, or a day off, or a meal, and that's enough to get you through a hard day. You're like, well, at the end of the day, I have my favorite food, I'll be with my favorite people, or whatever it is. But by and large, that hope of Christmas seems kind of lost sometimes. And it makes me think about Simeon from Luke's Gospel. Because we don't know at what point in his life he was told that he was going to see the Messiah before he died. But it was obviously before he saw the Messiah and before he died. So it was at some point before, but we get a sense that he's been looking out. Paying attention maybe to what's going on in the world. Maybe listening with his ear to the ground about some bizarre birth of these 2 travelers who then narrowly escaped Herod's sword. Right? He slaughtered the innocents. And so, somehow or other, Simeon's been waiting and waiting, and that, I wonder, obviously meeting the baby Jesus was a powerful moment for him, and the promise was that he wouldn't meet the Messiah, or he would meet the Messiah before he died. So you wonder, did he die the next day? I just don't know. But was it the waiting and the surety of that promise that got him through his days, or was it the actual meeting of Jesus, the confirmation of the promise? That in-between space that got him through his days. And that's kind of what this season in the church is about. It's a promise. A promise from God to meet Jesus. Perhaps in the manger, perhaps on the street, or perhaps at the end of time. It's still a promise. And we occupy that space, but the thing that gets messed up in our minds, I think, is that it's not just a promise from, say, me, you, or somebody else. It's a promise from God. And those kinds of promises are as good as cash in hand, right? I mean, it's not like a check that you're waiting for cash. We all know the King, speech, the insufficient funds speech. But this is God's promise, that you're going to meet Jesus. And so the question then becomes, well, where? Or have you ever met him? What's that like to meet God? I'm waiting for answers. Has anyone ever here met Jesus? Yeah, I don't know that I could say I've actually seen Jesus, but I've experienced. I can say I've met him. Yeah. Because that's the promise that's made to each of us, right? I mean, so you've met him, and now you're going to look again, hopefully. And so, when I think of the times that I've experienced Jesus, or I can say I've met him, they've been in every kind of context. You know, it could be at a bedside of somebody who's really ill. And that Jesus in that context might be the nurse who's been taking care of this person every day for months, right? Or it could be, you know, when I did an immigrant accompaniment to the Rodino Federal Building, there was a grandfather who was about to be deported, and a bunch of clergy, like 100 people, show up in a snowstorm and accompany this guy, and he goes into that building, and it's like, is he coming out? And then you have a rabbi friend of mine saying, well, if he doesn't come out, then we block the federal van and we go to jail. That's what we do, you know, right? Crazy. And then you have a bunch of pastors who are like, okay. And so, but he comes out and he gets his stay. And it's in that moment, I couldn't say who was Jesus there, but I know for sure that Jesus was there. To see that guy's grandkids embrace him. And say, thank God I will see you again before you die. Because he was in his 70s. Right? Or, you know, I've seen Jesus in siblings who have been fighting for a lifetime who finally embrace. Right? That's like, that is Jesus Christ. Like, what else, what other could cause families who are fighting to forgive each other? I mean, you know, that's a tough one. Or Jesus in the word that's proclaimed here, or even better yet, perhaps the one that's proclaimed not here. In our relationships, our jobs, to strangers. But Simeon is one guy in the Bible who's promised to meet Jesus. And there were a lot of people that met Jesus, and after Jesus died and resurrected, there were a whole lot of people who met Jesus. So maybe met isn't the right word, but maybe discover is a better word. Because that's, Jesus will be where 2 or 3 are gathered, where people forgive sins in Jesus' name, where people can say with honesty, God is love, with no qualifications. God is just simply love. Or when, you know, a border like death can be crossed before death, where someone says, I am okay. Terrified. I don't know what's on the other side of this, but I have faith in God, and maybe that's it. The promise to Simeon about meeting Jesus before we die is something that is not just made in the Bible, in the Gospel of Luke 2,000 years ago. And what Advent tries to tap into is, you know, how do I walk? Instead of with my head down, but a head up. Walking in the light of God everywhere I go. Saying, is this going to be the next time I meet God? Is this going to be the next time I meet God? Are you an angel and I don't know? Like faith looks forward to. Because it's a promise from God. And there's a whole range of possibilities into which God interjects God's self into our lives. And sometimes we're aware, sometimes we're not. And sometimes it's only in hindsight. But when it happens, in my experience, it's a chilling event. Where you get goosebumps. And joy. And then you start thinking all those times, wow, I wish I had faith like any other time except at this point when I'm just standing right in it, you know? But God says God will be there for us. Just like Just like the angel said to Mary, just like the angel said to Joseph, just like the angel said to just about everybody, God is showing up. And Advent is a season as much about hope as it is about joy. God's presence in our life is cause for